Hello and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me in another of my wonderful interviews. Now, we had a guest on the show some time ago now, and a huge amount of people said, you must get him back. And so I have. Ladies and gentlemen, today I'm talking to the one and only, allegedly, Dave. Hello, Dave.
Hello, Richard. How are you?
Yes, I'm very well. Thank you for coming back. And you've come back this time armed with an idea.
An idea? I've had an idea, yeah.
So it's always good when you get an idea. Now, you said to me when you came in, and I was actually, I was doing a bit of cooking, baking some biscuits. Don't tell everyone because I know it's got sugar in and sugar is bad and all of that, but every now and again. Anyway, that wasn't the idea. It wasn't the new recipe for the Vobes. Thank the Lord. But you said that you woke up with this idea.
Yeah. I just literally woke up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and with this idea fully formed in my head, I was like, whoa! And I just got up and wrote it all down. And,
wow!
Yeah, it just came up with a whole sort of proposal thing. So,
well, isn't that brilliant?
Yeah,
that is brilliant. So, I suppose we ought to find out what the idea is.
Right. Well, obviously, I've got to kind of keep some of it quiet because it's it's a bit sort of let's say sensitive.
Right.
But
we don't want the enemy to know what we're up
to. Exactly.
I should just say, for those that don't know, allegedly, I mean, a lot of people know that, and I'm sure all my audience do, and especially all the people who've requested you. But of course, you are very helpful for a lot of people in the lawful world and fighting against some of the nasty legalese things that entraps people. Mm-hmm. So just a little bit of background to what I know you do. Lots of other things and give amazing talks, and maybe we'll get on to where you're likely to be and things coming up later on. But I just thought I would give that little bit of background. So yes, you have something there called the Mortgage Project.
The Mortgage Project, yes. Well, I'll give a bit of background first, right? So banks do an awful lot of fraudulent things that they've actually legalised, right? So one of them is fractional reserve banking,
right?
Which is essentially back in the days where gold was the actual money, right? They figured out, right, because they got people to put their gold in their vaults and they'd give them receipts, vouchers, yes. Okay, and people started exchanging these vouchers. And the banks realised that only 10% of people would ever come into the bank and say, can I have a look at my gold, please?
Right.
So if only 10% of people actually went to see the gold, that meant they could lend out 90% more vouchers than they actually had in gold.
Yes.
So essentially they were counterfeiting. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, I guess if everybody who had these vouchers came back and said, let's have a look at the gold, they would be in trouble.
And that's what would be called a bank run.
Right.
Yeah, a real bank run was when everybody said, well, I want to see my real money, and the banks had to shut their doors because they didn't have it.
And right. We have seen that in history.
Yes.
And we may well be coming up to something like that soon, who knows. So that's fractional. So they're lending out more money than they've actually got. They don't, most people are completely ignorant of that.
Right. And the other thing is that the promissory notes themselves, the bank notes, they're promises to pay, originally an amount of silver.
Yes.
But now that they've taken away the silver, right, the promissory notes don't actually mean anything. They're just empty promises to pay you something.
Yeah, and I mean, I can't remember who it was who told me that in the last couple of years since doing this. And when you realise that you're carrying around, and we all know we're carrying around bits of paper, but they are basically worth nothing more than bits of paper. That's it.
Exactly.
And it's purely faith that's keeping it going.
Right. And the last thing that they do, that's again fraudulent, but it's called securitisation. It means they take the promissory note, right, that you create, right, when you sign that mortgage agreement, and then they sell it, right, without you knowing, because you don't know that agreement is actually a promissory note that's worth something.
Which you've created.
So you've created money, right? They don't tell you that.
No.
But then they take the agreement and then they sell it on the securities market. And they get the full value of that note. Yeah.
So not only have you created the money to begin with when you borrow the house, when you go to buy a house, and they put the money you created into your bank account, lend it back to you. You pay it back over X many years with interest. They also take that same form that you've done, and so they're making so much money on the back of every mortgage. No wonder they want to keep building houses.
Right. Well, in my talk, it was called The Great Big Mortgage Caper, I show that if you borrowed, say, £100,000 for a house, they make somewhere upwards of 1.8 million, right? Whether you pay it back or not.
My God. Right. Yeah. Even so they'll still chase you for the money that you created and potentially throw you out of your own house if you don't pay it.
Exactly.
Out of your own money.
Yeah.
And yet they're still making vastly more from the securitization.
Well, more than that, they actually take out a more insurance policy, right, just in case you default on the mortgage. Yeah.
So they get paid anyway.
So that, yes, if you default 90 days or 91 days after you default, they can claim on that mortgage policy and they get the full amount of the mortgage.
My God. Yeah, what a swizz it is.
It is. But the actual biggest fraud is the fact that they don't create the interest. When they create a loan, they only create the principal.
Right.
They don't create the interest. So that doesn't seem like it means very much. But think about this. Let's imagine there's no money in the world, no money at all, right? And you go to the bank to borrow £100,000. Well, you're going to have to pay back £300,000
because of the interest.
Because of the interest,
right?
But there's only £100,000 in the world because they only created £100,000. So where are you going to get
the extra 200?
The extra 200 from? The only way you're going to get that is if the bank loans to two other people £100,000. Now there's enough money for you to pay, but now there's two people who can't pay back their mortgage.
Oh,
so then the bank has to lend more to other people.
So it's continual lending out more money and more money.
And as long as the bank is lending out money, the game carries on and everybody's none the wiser. Yeah. And money's flowing, everybody's happy. All the bank has to do to create a recession or a depression is restrict the number of loans.
Right.
So they restrict the number of loans on the back end, so the mortgages that are already out there can't get paid off.
Oh, I see.
So then money gets tight and everyone is in a depression. And nobody knows that it was just because the banks started to turn down the loans.
That's really interesting. So in other words, there would be never a situation where all the entire loans could ever be paid off because there's always this debt of money that doesn't yet exist.
Exactly.
Until some other sucker takes out a loan.
Exactly. And then they can pay off the previous loan. Yeah, it's a Ponzi scheme.
Oh, blimey.
They'll only keep going as long as they're making loans.
Yeah.
And as I said, they can create a depression or recession without anybody knowing why it's happening, just by turning down the number of loans. That's it. And nobody, them turning down the number of loans, right, doesn't alert anybody that anything's wrong.
No.
Right? They're just saying, oh, we're just being careful. But no, they're literally causing.
They're causing
a recession.
So they would be using the old, but it's for your benefit. We don't think you could raise the money, so therefore, and they must know they've got to, whatever their scheme is to, well, we've got to get X many loans reduced. Right. So we can create this depression.
Well, the other thing about that idea of only creating the principal, not the interest, is that essentially 70% of people aren't going to be able to pay their mortgages off.
Wow.
The thing is, it's just hidden because the terms are so long and the amounts are so big and the number of people involved are so big that we can't see the game in its entirety.
And I suppose it doesn't help that our parents and grandparents have all been paying off theirs, and it's kind of set in stone and it all seems very laudable, and banks seem very honourable, and they're looking after your money, which isn't really your money at all. All of this stuff.
And you know what? The attraction of getting a mortgage and buying real estate is the idea that the real estate will accrue value, and you've stored money, and you've made money on this. But I sat down and worked it out, right? Now, okay, to a little story. When the new money came in, 1971, right? I think I was 8 years old at the time, and I went into a shop with a sixpence, because we had a period where you could still use the old money.
Yes, I remember it well.
Yes. So I went into a shop with a sixpence, and I wanted to buy a curly whirly.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was 5 new p.
Ah.
And my 8-year-old brain couldn't figure out why I've got 6 here.
Yes, which is more than 5. Yeah.
Why can't I get the curly whirly? You know, sixpence was only worth 2.5p, I think it was. So, so I remembered that story, and I thought, well, okay, if a curly whirly in 1971 was 5p, what is it now? It's around about £1 for a curly whirly.
Blimey.
Yeah, it's around that, because not only have they increased the price, they've made the thing smaller.
Yes.
Right, so you don't notice.
Yeah.
Right, so it's essentially a pound. So inflation, right, in that 50 odd years has been sort of, I can't remember the percentage now, but it's like, you know, huge, right? So what I did was I worked out, my mum and dad bought a house, I think it was like for £3,000, right?
3,000.
Yeah. And it was paid off in about 1996, and my dad ended up with something like 86,000. So it sounds like it made a lot of money.
Yeah.
But when you factor in that inflation, essentially, my dad made about £500 more than he borrowed. When you factor in inflation, right, literally, if that £3,000. I think it was actually 4,000. I think that £4,000, when you add inflation in, was about 88,000 or something. You know, not much more than he borrowed in the first place.
Gosh.
And he's paid for, you know, mortgage payments and council tax and rates and all that stuff on top of that. So
yeah.
you don't win.
No, I was going to say, you just can't, can you?
You can't win in it, you know. But the illusion is that you are winning. Yeah,
absolutely.
And that's why it's like a casino. That's why we keep playing, because there's the illusion out there that you can win.
But it's only then, when you're in somebody like yourself, or you've been to one of your talks and you're enlightened by this fact, and you suddenly get a little bit angry that not only have oneself been duped, but other people unfairly, and that these bankers have got all the cards, including all the jokers and everything. And then you think, well, what can we do about it?
Well, I think it was Henry Ford that said, if the people found out how the money works, then there'll be a revolution in the morning.
Yes.
And there would be.
Yes.
If all the muggles out there figured out, bloody hell, that's what they're doing to us, that's it. That's the game's over. Yeah.
But it does seem that people are so dumbed down that even though you tell people and they go, what can I do?
Well, you know, that attitude basically comes from the incredulity of it.
Yeah.
You know, there's no way they can believe that this is what's going on.
And for so long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, this idea, we kind of know the banks are cheating us anyway, but you know, what can we do about it? Yeah.
Exactly. And I guess, I mean, part of your job and many others is to empower people to realise actually, knowing about it is one thing. It's then challenging them. Because what have you got to lose if you're just challenging them?
Right, yeah. Well, I don't know, challenging
it depends how, I suppose I should reform that is questioning it with them. Because, you know, it is like, I suppose you could go to the bank and when you're taking out the mortgage and say, the signature I'm about to put on here, am I putting money into the bank by creating that, and seeing what they say?
Well, actually, what would happen is either they'll lie to you, right? Well, actually, think about it. When you go and sit down to sign your mortgage, there isn't anybody else there apart from your lawyer or your solicitor.
Right.
So who do you ask?
So who do you ask? Yeah, that's very true.
You know, so no, you won't be able to challenge them that way. But okay, when I first started along this route, sort of the free man on the land sort of thing, I got rid of a credit card debt. And I did that with just one letter, actually asking questions on how this works. but in a way that shows that I know how it works.
You know how it works, and they don't want to mess with you.
And what actually happened was, even though I was actually not in arrears, I'd paid up to date. There was nothing wrong with my account or anything. Right? I just asked them a few questions, and then next thing I knew, there was debt collectors coming after me. They'd written off the debt.
But they'd handed it on to a debt collector.
Yes. So, even though it was completely up to date, there was nothing wrong, right? Just me asking those questions was enough for them to just...
So was that to try and intimidate you to say, don't ask these sort of questions?
Essentially, yeah. That was it, because I think, I wasn't the first person to ask those questions. Yeah. So they could see the writing on the wall that, I know where this is going, yeah. So let's just cut and run, yeah.
Send it on. But luckily, of course, you weren't intimidated, and you are here today with a different idea, an idea that you woke up with.
Yes.
From divine source, who knows?
Right. Yeah. Now, I've told you the idea. But again, I don't want to sort of release too many details out there. But it will require a bit of trust on the part of the people participating, to trust me. I don't know some bloke from Basildon, but
a nice bloke from Basildon. I mean, certainly all my interactions with you have been very nice. So
good.
And I've actually performed in Basildon, so there's a connection there.
Have you? And you got out alive?
I got out alive. Yeah, I did have. I was dressed as a robot in Basildon in the shopping centre, and I did have a few young kids of about 13 kick me and poke me to see if I was real. But I did sort of then come to life like that, and that scared them.
Well, normally somebody like that would get little kids weeing on them and stuff. So.
Yeah, I mean, it was in the 90s, so hopefully it wasn't like these days. But anyway, so bloke from Basildon.
Yeah, so again, I can't release too many details, but the idea essentially is to use the fraudulent practices that the bank actually use against us, or use them against them, because those fraudulent practices have been legalised by the bank.
Yes.
Right. So, equity under the law is paramount. So if they can use them, then so can we. So
what is the purpose of using this their own rules against them? So what would be the what are we trying to do?
Well, essentially, create an instrument that will pay off the mortgage for you.
Right. So if you've got a mortgage, and you could be at any stage in that mortgage, that might be too much to pay for, or it's a fraudulent thing from the beginning, that you could use an instrument, and I think people will be pinning back their ears now, and you use this instrument using their rules to say, there you go, I'm paying it off. And actually, you're not losing anything.
Exactly, and the trick here is to create an instrument that they can't resist.
Right.
And not only that, to create an instrument that they have extreme difficulty denying or saying is not acceptable or not valuable.
Right.
So I've figured out a way basically to give this it will be a promissory note, but give this promissory note an inherent value that isn't there in even their promissory notes.
Right, because their promissory notes, like the £10 note, is backed by it just says, I promise to pay the bearer on demand £10 or £20 or £50, and you don't know whether it's mouldy potatoes. It could be sterling silver, but they've no longer specified what it is. It's just a promise. And actually somebody said, here's a funny thing, I heard this, somebody said, and they went to the bank and they said, they gave them a £10. They said, actually, it says on here, I promise to pay the bearer on the sum of £10. Can I have that £10? They said, well, you've already got it. And they said, well, why do you put that on? And the answer was, well, if it becomes so scruffy that it's no longer, people don't want to use it, we will change it and give you a nice new one. And you think, hang on a minute, you're a sucker if you believe that one.
Well, yeah, you would be. Actually, somebody went to the Bank of England, right, and with their £20 note and said, slapped it on the counter and said, "I want my £20." And they gave him 2 tens and kicked him out. And locked the door behind them.
And locked the door. Why?
Yeah.
To stop him coming in again.
Yeah, because that's the game. That's
Right.
the game that's been revealed there.
Yes.
So, they don't want the muggles out there to know how this all works.
Okay, so you've got a promissory note with value that is provable without Whereas if I wrote a promissory note, it wouldn't. If I just wrote it, it wouldn't necessarily. It would have the same value, let's say, as a £10 note.
It would have the same value. It'd have the value of what you put on there.
Right.
If you just wrote out a promissory note and gave it to the bank, right? They would immediately say, "Oh, we don't accept this."
Right.
But they won't return it to you.
No. Why not?
Because they can securitize it. They can sell it and for the value of the note.
No, that's really interesting because people will know that I paid off the water bill, not quite with a promissory note, but it's effectively the same principle of signing on and saying, yes, I approve this, I'll turn this into money. Mm-hmm. And I paid off one water bill and then I heard nothing from them. So I didn't give them any money. I just signed the thing and said, yes, happy to approve all of this. 3 months go past. I get the next bill from the water board and it gives you the last couple of statements to show where you are and where you've paid. Mm-hmm. And there, sure enough, was the one I'd paid using my signature. So I made the mistake of coming on the show and saying it bloody works. And then suddenly the water board clearly have been awash with these people going, oh, well, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. So I don't mean it was a mistake because I wanted to help people. Mm-hmm. But of course, because I put it on the show, too many people probably at once came in. And so when I did the next one, they said, no, we don't accept this. This isn't payment. Go away, you silly man. And I said, well, I will go away and I'll pay it another way if you send me back the original financial instrument. Well, they haven't. And they probably securitized it and made money out of it. And so, in the end, I'm going to send them an invoice to say, well, you've got my money. So either deduct it from the account or here's my invoice to say you haven't sent it back. Give me my money and then I'll give you yours, which is, a ludicrous situation.
Yeah. That's the thing, when you did it, right, obviously, it got through, but when there's the floodgates open and lots of people, well, they've got to try and protect the game.
Yes.
Right. So, when we do this, we're not going to be making a big fuss of it. We're just going to be doing it. I'm not going to be doing a show saying it works or anything because
I've learnt my lesson.
Yes, but they can't actually refuse your promissory note, right? If they're gonna say no, we don't accept it. Well, they've got to take you to court and prove that they don't accept it.
Right.
If they've hung on to it, if you send it to them, they hang on to it and say we don't accept it. The fact they've hung on to it means they've accepted it.
Yes.
Yeah. And they can't really get around it. And if they say, well, it's lost or it's been destroyed, well, they've been paid.
Yes.
What they do with it after that is their concern.
Well, I did say in my letter, I said, well, I can't be I can't be liable for your loss once it's been delivered. It's been delivered. So if I know a busy office and what have you, but I've paid it as far as I'm concerned because it's the same as me just giving them the ready cash and them saying, oh, we don't accept that, and you go, okay, give me my ready cash back.
Yeah. Exactly.
And they're not. Somebody's put it in their pocket and gone off with it.
Well, that's actually the problem with people using promissory notes because they've been taught that the promissory notes that the bank give are real, and if you wrote one, then it's not real. And that's in the back of their heads.
Yes. So
when the bank or whoever it is say, well, we don't accept it, they go, oh, it didn't work.
Yeah.
But as you say, if you'd given them a gold bar...
Yeah.
Right. Accept this as payment. and they say, oh no, we don't accept gold bars, but they didn't give you a gold bar back, would you just leave it and go, oh, no.
Yeah, no, well, that's exactly it. And that's why I kept saying, I'm happy to pay. And I did this with the council tax and HMRC. And I did exactly the same. And they're doing the same. And I'm just saying, look, I'm not saying I'm not paying. Just give me the financial instrument back. Give me what I've tried to pay with. As you say, it could be a Rembrandt picture.
Yeah, because I think it's valuable.
Yeah, I think that's valuable.
It's got value to it. So give it back to me, or give me the value of what you've taken from me.
And because they won't or they can't, it's like, well, fair enough. There's the invoice then. Pay that.
Right.
So anyway.
So the what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a trust called the Auric Liquiescence Trust.
Excuse me? The what?
The Auric Liquiescence Trust. I'm gonna explain what that means later on.
The Auric I can't even say it.
The Auric Liquiescence Trust.
The Auric Liquiescence Trust. You know, it just trips off your hair, off your lips, doesn't it? Okay, so you're going to set up a trust.
Yes, I'm going to be the grantor and trustee, and invite anybody who's got a mortgage to become a beneficiary. And there'll be a donation involved, but it should be less than a mortgage payment.
Right. So people would become a beneficiary of the trust. They make a donation of whatever, and then what happens? Right.
So, and this is a bit the quiet bit we can't really talk about, but this is where I'll create a financial instrument that they can't refuse. They can't.
The banks can't refuse.
Banks can't refuse. Again, using their own technology, their own methodologies against them. Because they're using them against us.
Yeah.
And again, equality before the law is paramount. So if they can do it, then we can do it. Yeah.
So if people were interested in doing this, you'd obviously be telling the individuals who would be making the donation what's going on.
Right. You? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with. I have a Telegram group for the people who came to the mortgage talk.
Right.
And it's actually open to anybody else now, but I'm going to do a live broadcast on that group because they'll be the primary people who primary beneficiaries, and let them know exactly how it's going to work, and then I'm going to slowly in smaller groups let other people know. I'm just trying to minimise, the information getting out there.
Yes.
As much as possible.
And I mean, and the case that I did, whereas I just shoved it on a thing, and I don't know how many people watched it. About 50, 100,000 people watched that particular video, and no wonder, they're being. I mean, you wouldn't want 50,000 people walking into the bank going, "I've got this promissory note," because they'd all be gathering in the back room going, "Well, we've got to stop this, Johns. Yes, how do we stop this?" The
law is on our side. The legislation and case law is on our side. The Bill of Exchange Act 1882 basically says that a promissory note is cash.
Right.
And that's backed up by Lord Denning in let's see if I remember it. Fielding and Platt. Yeah, Fielding and Platt versus Selling and Jar, 1969.
69.
He says that promissory note has to be treated as cash. So that, and I gave you the little version, didn't I? There it is.
I think I gave it back.
You probably won't be able to see this, but I've this is my mock-up. Oh, okay. It's over there. It's my mock-up of the promissory note. You might notice there's this is from Dave Silver.
I'll try and focus this thing on.
Yeah.
Doing this cack-handed here.
So you'll notice that there's that £5 note in the corner, right? But it's going to be wrapped around the promissory note. So it's glued to the promissory note, wrapped around it, so that you can't basically remove the fiver from the promissory note. But as I said, there'll be some jiggery-pokery so that the promissory note will be irresistible to them.
Right. And that's the bit we can't talk about.
That's the bit we can't talk about. But the promissory note itself is very similar to the one that Michael Tellinger put forward. That essentially it's like a precedent that he actually paid off Standard Bank of South Africa. I think it was 800,000 rand, which is I think about 70 or 80,000 pounds.
Right.
So he paid off. I think it was a shortfall to the sale of his house,
Wow.
but he paid with promissory notes, and they were accepted. So the basic premise of Michael Tellinger's promissory note has been adopted in this one, with a little twist. But it means that they can see the assets behind the promissory note, but they can't actually access them.
Right. Oh, okay. So in other words, they could take the promissory note, but they couldn't actually get to.
Yeah, they can see the value of the promissory note, and they can verify the value of the promissory note, but they can't actually get to the assets.
But that would be enough for them to accept it, because they could securitize it.
Well, they can securitize it, and it will look very attractive because there'll be something behind it.
And so what would be the process then? I mean, presumably you couldn't just talk to the tiller at the bank, and an ordinary tiller there, because they would just be going, "What the hell is this you've come in with?"
No, you'd have to deliver it. The best way would be, again, as Michael Tellinger put forward, that you go to the headquarters of the bank and go to their legal documents receiving office.
Ah, right.
And get it stamped that it's been received. So you get the note stamped and the copy stamped, along with the notice of full and final settlement, which will have all the legislation and all the case law that's behind it, and all the reasons why they have to take it.
Well, they have to take it, maybe.
Yeah, or return it. And even if they return it, according to the Bill of Exchange Act, if I tender something to you, right, and it's valid, and you say no, don't accept that,
and I return
they
it,
dishonour it, then literally the debt's extinguished.
Debt's gone.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So why would people? I mean, you mentioned about the trust and trust in you, and the donation. Could people do this themselves?
Well, okay. So one of the things that we tried back in the Free Man on the Land days was, when we first figured out about promissory notes, a couple of people tried writing a promissory note to themselves,
right,
and deposit it into the bank, and it didn't work.
Right.
But one thing that did work, and I don't know how long it worked for, whether we got a balance show up and then it was whipped away or something, but it worked, was that somebody created a promissory note and paid somebody else for that promissory note, and that somebody else, I think it was his mum, and his mum basically took that promissory note and deposited it into the bank. So It wasn't the person writing it that deposited it. It was a third party who got paid with that note.
Yes, I suppose that makes sense, because it's the Bank of England's note that we use. It's not our own note, so it's somebody else's note. So if I give you a promissory note of £10, and you go down to the pub and you go, "There you go, I'd like to pay with this," assuming that the pub were happy, or you were the bank, let's say, forget the pub, pub's been forgotten. And then the bank go, "Oh yeah, okay, we can see the relevant things that there needs to be on it for them to go, we can make some money out of this." They would then accept it.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't accept it if you just written, because you could sit there for hours, couldn't you, just writing yourself, right, or you just write one for £10 million.
Instead, they've got a payment from the Auric Liquescent Trust. Sorry, I can't even say it.
So why the long, complicated name?
Okay, so the word auric means golden.
Golden.
And liquescent means liquid. So if anybody knows the type of golden liquid that I talk about...
Oh, I get it. So you are kind of taking the piss?
I was actually going to call it the Auric Liquescence Extraction Trust.
And I wonder if the banks getting that would ever know that. That would be, and that's that sort of thing that they do to us, isn't it? It's in plain sight. They wouldn't get the gag, but they're always having the gag on us with all their messages that we miss. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah. So how I'm going to do it is actually I'm putting together a website, and on that website you'll be able to pledge. So you can say you're interested in the idea, but if you want to get involved, then you just say, all right, I'll pledge this donation. Right.
Right.
So don't have to part of anything, but there'll be a sufficient lead time, so maybe a couple of months. And I'll say, okay, I'm going to call in the pledges.
Right.
And then I'll be able to actually start the process and then start issuing promissory notes.
And I'm going to be cheeky here. Can people pledge with their own promissory notes?
Not really, because it's going to be because I'm going to have to acquire certain things.
Yes.
And,
understood.
Yeah.
But it is an irony that that because the money system is so corrupt, that you have to use their promissory notes, which promise nothing, in order for you to do what you need to do to be able to issue another promissory note, but yours would be worth something, whereas theirs is worth nothing. Once you remove the faith in the fact that the Bank of England would ever give the bearer on the sum of anything.
Right.
Yeah. So
and the faith in the note will be a certification that there are assets behind it.
Yeah. Wow. Gosh. So you said about a couple of months to sort of get things up and running.
Right. So this is always a one man band. So it's going to take me a little while to get the website up and running. I'll start explaining the process to everybody as soon as I got the website up, and then maybe a month or so after that, I'll once I got enough numbers that I think I can I can start this, because essentially let's see if I'm going to reveal anything. If I get enough in the way of assets, I can do what the bank does. Right? And as long as I write a promissory note to the or less than the amount I've got in assets, then the certification will look like, well, okay, he's got enough to cover it, and so the note is there's something behind it.
There's something behind it, yeah.
So depending on how much I can get to build this asset class, right, I can write promissory notes up to the value of that.
And so let's say people make their donations. Are they losing that money, that donation, or is it held like a bank in an account that which, if they wanted to call back on that, could they? Well,
they're kind of going to lose it as such, because it's literally going to be sitting there as the asset,
right? But what they gain is their mortgage gone.
Is literally the mortgage gone. And as I said, there are so many things added to this note that means they're going to have an incredibly difficult time to actually say, no, this isn't valuable, or this isn't acceptable.
So, and I said this to Dave when he revealed the whole thing, and I thought, blimey, okay, that does sound like it's got legs. And I was incredibly disappointed, because I said to him, you're about 10 years too late for me, because I have paid off my mortgage. But there are plenty of people I think of my son, for example. Well, my two sons have mortgages, and the mortgage rate of going up. When I was paying back the mortgage rate was really low. I mean, I was very, very lucky. But now, of course, the mortgage rates are going up, and people are being squeezed left, right, and centre. Yeah. And we've seen that with the bills and everything. So anything that can help people get out of trouble is good, especially when you know that it's a bloody fraud.
Yeah.
And you've been taken for a ride all the way along.
Yeah. And with the same method that we're going to use to actually get rid of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's very exciting. I mean, it'd be fascinating to see how it pays out. I mean, because potentially millions of people could be banging on your door saying we need to do something about this.
Sure, and because we've got this asset, as it were, right? Then I can use the same methodology they use, the fractional reserve banking.
Right.
Right. They typically say have a reserve of 10%. That was a traditional value. Right. So they keep 10% of reserves, and now they can lend out 90% more than they've got. I think in this country it's down to like 1% or less than 1% they have to keep in reserve.
Gosh.
So I can actually set my reserve at 0.00001%.
So does that, hang on a minute though, and I have to ask this question because people will be thinking, hang on a minute, does that mean it'll make you a lot of money and with the reserve?
Well, the reserve,
because it's in a trust.
It's in a trust.
Yeah.
But after if we we're going to have to keep sort of helping people with these mortgages. And to be honest, when this thing's running, there'll be significant costs because the asset in I don't want to reveal too much.
No, I appreciate that.
But yeah,
it's just the critics. I'm just sort of, people will going, oh, is this a get rich for whoever comes up with the idea? And I mean, I know you and I trust you and all of that, but I'm just sort of, I know I have to sometimes ask these difficult questions, but I think you've batted it away by saying, well, the money's in the trust. It's not your money. You're the grantor of the trust. And so therefore it's you're helping people get out of their mortgage. And
if it comes to the point where there's no more people wanting mortgages, well, there's other projects.
Right.
The other one, do I say? Yeah, the other project I started to launch, but I just didn't get enough support to actually help me launch it, was to start an energy company.
Oh, right.
And essentially, anyone who changes their meters can sort of join my company. Not join my company, but sign up with my company, and I will charge them £400 a month for their energy, and but I'll pay them £390 a month for meter rental.
Right. So it's really only £1.
Or whatever it is,
however it works.
Whatever it is, so that they can just say, sorry, I'm with Allegedly Energy.
Allegedly, this is energy.
Yeah. There are other projects to help people that we can get off the ground.
Absolutely. Well, you're clearly a fairly fearless chap, aren't you? By these, challenging the system. We know what happens to people who challenge the system.
Well, again, we're small fry. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, they'll take our channels away or try and they're not gonna murder us or anything.
Well, I hope not.
Because we're not part of their system. We're not taking oaths or anything like that. So,
no, that's true.
But they've got an array of things they can throw at us.
One imagines they're quite busy at the moment.
Yes.
With more. I nearly said nobler issues, but none of it's noble. But, with priorities that they have to try and take over the world and do all whatever nonsense they're doing. Well, that sounds really interesting. How do people get in touch with you then to find out more?
Right. Well, at the moment, as I said, I haven't launched anything. I'm literally just trying to get some interest, some awareness that this is coming. And I'll start sort of putting it out on the Telegram groups and all the other groups when the time's right, and hopefully with word of mouth we can get enough people to actually start it off.
Okay, I'm glad you said that because that just leads me into, please don't email me as people do, and then they say, Richard, can you tell us when this is happening, or can you tell us this about this is happening? Because I don't know. The person you need to get in touch with is Allegedly Dave.
Right, and you can use my email if you want. It's dmurphy25@gmail.com.
dmurphy25@gmail.com.
Yep. My website has kind of gone down, and I'm trying to slowly put it back up again. But yeah, the bare bones of my site is still there, so you can find all my contact details at allegedlydave.com.
Fantastic. Well, that sounds interesting. So now you tour around and you do all sorts of things. You were on the show talking about how do I frame it? What do you call that talk about sort of spirituality?
The fourth dimension.
The fourth dimension. That's right.
Yes.
The fourth dimension. And so are you still doing that talk around at the moment?
Well, my tour's basically come to an end now. I think I've got one more that somebody just popped up yesterday who wants me to give it, but pretty much come to an end now. And I've had actually a lot of people who've seen our little chat about it and have got really excited about it. And
brilliant.
And I've said, well, that wasn't the talk. That was me talking about the talk.
Yes. It's funny how it happens, isn't it?
Yeah.
So next year, then you'll be back on the road.
Yes, and I'll probably come back with that talk, or because I'm always adding to it, and
Yes.
as I find out more about it.
Yeah.
But it's a really exciting talk. I get excited every time I give it.
Oh, fantastic! And it presumably it resonates with people because they see something in it.
Absolutely. I get everyone who comes to it, or well, I say everyone, well, most people who come to it, come back to me and say, yeah, this has happened, and yeah, I remember back in the day this happened to me, and it's exactly what you were talking about. And because what it is just a different look at what we see as normal.
Yes.
Right? Because we've accepted this kind of nuts and bolts world that works according to science, but it doesn't work like that at all.
Right.
And when you see that, the time doesn't exist as such, which sounds, like, well, how can that be? But when you change your perspective, you go, oh, okay, I can see how that works.
Yes.
Now I can see how I can actually make changes to my past. And actually, I can make changes to my future as well. Then it becomes accessible because now you've got a way of thinking about it that makes sense.
And if you didn't hear the talk about the talk on the channel, I'll try and find that and put the link in, and then go and see Dave his talk. I did miss your talk when we were at Sounds Beautiful, which was a bit of a shame because I wasn't sure it was on when you did it. Or I think we just arrived. Anyway, whatever it is. That is the problem of doing these things. But, Dave, it's been brilliant. It's been brilliant to see you. And it's great to have you back on the channel. It's always good. And it does sound very exciting. So, well, I suppose we ought to leave it there, really.
Okay.
So there we are, ladies and gentlemen. If you've got a mortgage and you're sort of struggling with it, or you just think the whole principle of borrowing money from somebody when it's your own money, and you think, actually, how can we get rid of this? Dave seems to be your man. And go and check it out and give him a few minutes to breathe. I know what these things are like, and it sounds worth investigating. So really, where are we now? We're almost in October. So by January, I suppose there'll be something to look at.
Yeah, I'm hoping to do it before I go away. So we'll see.
Yeah,
it depends on how far I get doing this thing on my own.
Yeah. I mean, this is the problem. It's great to have these ideas for things, and then you're excited, and then you want to get other people excited, and sometimes you need help, you need support to get certain things going, don't you?
Yeah, that's why Allegedly Energy didn't go anywhere, because I was promised a bit of help, and then it didn't materialise, and it was like, oh, okay, I can't do
everything. No.
Only one pair of hands,
Exactly, but with a name like Allegedly Energy, I just think that's a great name. Anyway, so there we are, ladies and gentlemen. Allegedly Dave, back here. It's been absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much, Dave.
Thank you.
Thoroughly enjoyed it, as ever. And, of course, I will be back with more monologues and more wonderful guests, sometimes in the studio, sometimes out on location, wherever it happens to be. But thank you for watching. From Dave and I, until the next one, he says, searching for the off button. Bye-bye.